Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios and you're watching Tutorial Tuesday. And since I promised you guys last week to process the reese bass a little bit further, that's what we're gonna talk about today. For all of you who don't know, I have launched a VIP section on my website where you can now download the patches that I actually make or create in these videos that I show on my YouTube channel. And there's also gonna be some really interesting articles coming up and some other plans coming soon, which give you a little bit of extra additional discount when you purchase a longer subscription or longer membership. I've added some couple of new functions. There's now little VIP icons in front of the menu items on the website that become active when you are a VIP member, just to make it a little bit easier. And I made the new VIP forum where you can actually give me, feedback on the VIP instruments and racks that I have on my website, but also on my videos and what you would like to see as future VIP features. So, today we're gonna talk about the reese bass. I made this reese bass last week and it sounds really nasty. I mean, this is how the bass sounds. And you know, it sounds really, really great, but for what I want to do in this video or in this particular track, I'm not going to use it like this. I mean, I could throw drum and bass beat under this and it would fit perfectly. But for this kind of bass, you know, I really want a glitchy, weird kind of neuro-funkish little bass. And I'm going to use this one quite a lot in the track, I guess. Yeah, so I think we're going to add some processing. Right here you can see it's built of 2 layers. This is the massive preset that I talked about last week. I showed you how to make it, and this is now also available on the ARTFX website. And this is a layer with some paper crumbling, I guess. Sounds like this. And this is adding the top layer to the actual sound. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add an EQ to both the paper one and the massive instance, because I haven't EQ'd yet. Let's start with the massive one. So it has a lot of low end already, but I want to see if it sounds better with a sub underneath it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to high pass this one, and let's see, I'm gonna take the normal high pass. So we get that. We could bring it up a little bit. You know, that also makes some room for the snares in a sound. And we can boost a little bit just above 100 Hertz to make up for what we've lost. You know, we get a little bit more bass now. Now for the paper layer, let's see. You can see there's still a little bit of low end going on in that layer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it to about where it ends. And then I'm going to add, a steep high pass. Now what I can also do is turn this one to a high shelf, turn the Q up a little, and then bring the gain up to really bring out those higher frequencies. Together with the main reese, I don't really know if you can hear it, but that's a significant difference. It's really sounds a lot more crunchier. And that's good, because in the end, this is really, really gonna sound a lot better. So what we could now do, I'm gonna add a sub bass, I think. Let's duplicate the instance of massive, so we get another chain in here. And let's see. I'm gonna turn off everything. So we're gonna turn off all of these because we don't need them. No filters, No tube, no dimension expander, no EQ, everything is gonna be turned off. I'm gonna go to the voicing, I'm gonna turn these all off, set the voicing to 1. But I'm gonna keep the mono rotate and legato settings and also the glide settings and this particular envelope number 2, which is that one. I'm gonna leave the restart via gate on. Now I'm gonna set this one to a sine wave, take it all the way to the left, turn this all the way up and turn the amp all the way up. Let's see, change band plus back to spectrum. And let's see how this layer sounds. Because we're really low right now, so I can turn it up an octave. Oh, and this is my mistake, but I need to take off the EQ8, of course. That's some solid sub bass. I mean, if we take it down a little bit, it becomes too low. It doesn't even vibrate my speakers that much, so that sounds pretty good. I'm also gonna throw an EQ8 on the sub bass, and let's give it a low pass at about 150 Hertz, like that. This is really making it sound a lot better. Let's call this one mid. Let's call that one sub. And let's call this one high. Take the sub down. About there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna process this a little bit further. Right here I've got some macro knobs. I'm going to connect these glide settings to a macro knob for both the mid, high, and the sub. So how are you gonna do that? Because when I right click this, I mean, you can't map this to one of the instrument rack knobs, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click this little triangle and you get this particular part. You press configure and let's go to the mid. Press configure, and when I now, let's see, when I now take that glide on this one, yeah, you can see it comes up right here. So now I can map this to macro 1, and when I go to the sub layer, open it up, press configure, take that glide, and map that to macro 1 as well. So now we've basically got the one right here, and the one right here. And you can see when I turn this knob, that the glide in both two massives moves the exact same way. Which is really good, because that's what I want. The same thing for the highs. This is a little bit different because this is a instance of sampler. So let's see, we've got, yeah, so here I've got the glide time. So I'm gonna map this to glide as well. And let's bring up the glide. Okay, so I've done it from really low to almost all the way up. So let's just keep the glide settings for the sampler like this. Because when I turn this now, you can see the glide is also moving. I can go to map mode, and there's one thing I could change. Bring the minimum value up a little bit, because I use a really slow one. Let's just do it like that, you know? So right here on the MIDI tab, I can define how big the pitch bend range is. I'm gonna bring this to let's see, 12 semitones. I think that's gonna be about good. I'm gonna do the same for this one. Gonna bring this up to 12. And I'm gonna bring it down to 12 as well. Gonna do the same for the sub. Like that. So now we've got that particular note in there that does that. Now I can bring up the envelopes by clicking this little button right here, and it's automatically set to the pitch bend. If not, you can select it from this menu. And now I can actually take a selection, make the selection and go up to here up until the line becomes blue. And then I drag it up, click this little dot to remove it. And now we get that. So I can, shape this to make it sound different, I can even open this up to get a little bit more precise. Oh. You see, so now I can basically choose to make the pitch bend with note changes, but I could do the exact same with the pitch bend values. For instance, I can take this last part right here, and let's say I want to rise the pitch a little bit here, and this is going to be really drastic. But I can do it also with a really small amount. And I can say, and I can say copy envelope, go to here, paste it, and it's gonna give that exact same thing. Do the same then back here, drop it down a little. Let's just make that 2 notes. In that way you can really create interesting effects. I'm not totally happy with how that sounds, but it's a way to make things sound interesting. Let's keep that start. I like that. Now let's turn up the macro knob a little bit, and I'm gonna name this glide. And let's get out of the envelopes. It's really a matter of finding the right thing to do. So you see how I added that pitch bend in the end? Let's see how this sounds. So that sounds pretty interesting, but there's still a lot of things we can do. On the mids, I'm gonna add a autofilter, because I want some more filtering going on. That autofilter, I'm gonna set this to a band reject. So that's this last one. That basically means it's gonna scoop out a little bit of the frequencies. Now I'm gonna take a Max for Live instrument and I'm gonna take a Max audio effect. Go to LFO and I'm gonna drag it in front of the autofilter. Like that. I'm gonna map the frequency to that. I'm gonna take the rate down quite a bit. It's gonna be really slow. I can sync this to the tempo if you want, you know, you can make it a slow rate. Bring the depth down quite a bit. Let's see how this sounds. You know, that already gets a little bit more of a better feeling. I'm also gonna drop the offset down a little bit because I don't want it to really touch those high frequencies. That sounds pretty interesting. Now I could do this another time if you want. That's even better. I can duplicate this so you get another 2 of these. And let's just set the offset to something higher. Bring the depth down a little bit. Let's turn the phase all the way up. And let's make the rate something a lot slower. Or a lot faster, I mean. So now we get... So that really changes the sound. I mean, we went from this to this. And that really is gonna bring out a lot of detail when you're gonna distort this. I mean, distortion, when we're now gonna add some distortion, and we could take whatever we think is gonna suit this. I'm gonna use camel fat because I like camel fat. it's easy as that. Let's take a clear preset and let's turn on the distortion. Let's add a little bit of tube. So that sounds interesting. Let's add a little bit of Mac. Well, it's too much. Maybe not. Maybe add some Exciter. We can add a little bit of flanging. A little bit of the flanger to this if we want. Just gonna give it a little bit more movement. Now what I always do is add an EQ8 after the distortion, because distortion really brings out a lot of that low end. I mean, if I look this up right now, we've basically got back all the low end that we took out with the EQ earlier. So let's, you know, just bring this up again. So we get that. You know, and you can really play around with this. Duplicate one of these LFOs drag it in front of this EQ and map it and map this one to the frequency of the EQ with a slower rate. Bring the depth up a little bit and the offset down. You know, bring the Q up a little. You know, it's all about getting movement in this particular sound. Now we've got this layer. It sounds pretty good. I mean, this is definitely great. We've got the high frequencies, which still sound a little bit weird. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add, let's see, I'm gonna take the Toku audio line chorus. You can use the native Ableton Live chorus if you want, but I really like the sound of this one. Let's take the dry wet down a little bit. Just gonna add a little bit more stereo width to those highs. I'm also gonna add a little bit of reverb to this because I really think it sounds, well, really dry. Let's take the Convolution Reverb Pro from the Max for Live devices. Okay, so I've added this reverb now. Now this is way too long. I really need something short, so I'm gonna take something, well, maybe made for drums. I mean, still too long. Let's turn the decay down. You can turn the size down. And let's take the dry wet down. Just gonna add a little bit more space to those high frequencies. Let's add some overdrive to this. I'm gonna overdrive the high frequencies. So now we're really getting some movement on those high frequencies. Another thing we could do is add a phaser to the high frequencies. And that will really give it some more stereo width. Take the dry wet down. And you can really hear it starts to become a lot more interesting. I can take the flanger. And that's really gonna add some really interesting stuff. Finally, always an EQ on the end of the chain, because we've got a lot of low-end content again. So let's take it out. Because I only need those high frequencies. I mean, we don't need any low-end content in this layer going on. I'm gonna take the volume down because we've increased the volume quite a bit. That's sounding a little bit better now. One thing I like to do now is I'm going to add an autofilter I'm going to bring up this automation lane by simply just clicking that and dragging it a couple of times. And now what I can do, I can draw in automations for that particular sound. You know, so I can simply start drawing in an automation that I think is gonna sound good. And this is mostly just trial and error. I mean, this is really just trying shit out. You know, just trying to find as many interesting patterns as possible. That's what I always try to do. You know, just play around a little bit, different shapes. Now, you also need to keep in mind that right now I'm working on a fairly high buffer setting for my sound card, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, 50 milliseconds. That's why. My CPU is gonna be, well, going up a lot faster, but it's gonna be a lot more accurate with the automation. You know, just try to find some interesting stuff. If you have something, you know, a gap, just fill it in with a note. I mean, and just add an automation there. I mean, we don't know if we're gonna use this, but if we do, then we at least want to have something there, right? That already sounds pretty cool. So I'm really not happy with some of these faster parts. Especially that one. Let's take that out. Do it like that. Sounds better already. with that. I can make this last one so that it rises up a little bit. Like that. Which I think sounds pretty cool. Now, you can also play around a little bit with these, well, the positions where it stops. I mean, sometimes you don't really want to cut the sound out all the way. For instance, like that. That sounds pretty interesting. See, so that sounds pretty interesting. Now what I would most of the time do is basically check if the level of my sub is okay. You know, that's always something you want to check. So that's pretty good. I can add an EQ8 to do some final touch-ups. It's a little bit too much, a little bit less. Take out a little bit. And you might think at this point, damn, this sounds nothing like a good bass at all. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with thinking that, because it definitely doesn't sound like a great bass line right now. But I really tried to find as many different kinds of modulations as possible in this particular sound, because now when I play this with the drums, it definitely doesn't really sound good. But I'm gonna chop it up into different parts, rearrange them to make it sound a lot more interesting. And you know, that part sounds interesting. Another thing we could do, but I'm gonna do that later on, is add some high pass filtering to this. Because with a high pass, you can really make it sound a lot more different. You can really add some insane effects. I mean, you can add a little bit more movement with that high pass. So what I would do now is take this. Let's create a new audio track. Like that. I also like to add the glue compressor to the end of the chain. And why do I want to do that? Well, that's with a reason, because the glue compressor basically works as a really, really great limiter as well. I can so I can bring up the makeup gain, and when soft clipping is turned on, it's really gonna, well, basically just clip it, and it's gonna cut off everything that exceeds that 0 dB. And that's really, really great, especially on these kind of sounds, because you really want them to be loud, banging, you know. So when we're gonna chop this up, it's gonna be insane. See how much volume I got with just that, you know, and it doesn't really sound bad. The sub became a lot louder. I actually hear that I can turn the sub down a little bit. That gives us a little bit more mid-range to work with. I'm also gonna sample a couple of longer notes. I'm gonna duplicate this particular clip. So with it, it also duplicated that. But then I'm gonna change the notes in this clip. So we're gonna get a C. And let's take a D, an F, and a G sharp. And maybe an A sharp. And now I can go in to here and basically just say I want this particular phrase because I really like this phrase. Hit copy selection and I'm gonna paste it right there. And I want the first part of this one as well, so I'm gonna copy this envelope and I'm gonna paste that right here. But I'm gonna keep that last part and I'm also gonna paste it right here. So now you get so that sounds really great. I mean, this is really interesting. Yeah, I think right now we're done. I'm gonna add I'm gonna resample this bass now. So what I'm gonna do is I've got this new audio track and I'm gonna click this I/O button. That basically means in and output. And I'm going to select in this drop-down menu, resampling. I'm gonna turn this to record. And I'm gonna turn looping off for now. And I'm going to press record right here. So if done correctly, we should now have, well, something that sounds pretty damn well. And it really matches up. That's great, because a couple of days ago, I was having a lot of problems with this. So yeah, now we've got this as an audio clip. And we can now start chopping this up. And that is where, you know, the real fun begins. You know, you can play around now with the start position, for instance. And, you know, this is just a lot of trial and error. I do notice that there's a slight delay in the recording. You have that every now and then. Which is basically the way Ableton handles automation. You know, it's a pain in the ass sometimes. And that is because there's no plugin delay compensation, or there is PDC, which is plugin delay compensation, but it doesn't compensate the delay that you get for the automation. So when you introduce particular effects that contain a lot of movement, like for instance this one, you sort of like lose the preciseness of that LFO pattern. So what we could do, and this is really a different way of doing it, but it should work. Insert another audio track. And let's delete this one. Then I'm going to take that autofilter and the glue compressor, take it out of here, and drop it on this new clip, or this new track, sorry. Then I'm gonna resample this again, but before I can resample it again, just the way it is now. I'm gonna set the volume to 0 dB. Let's record this. Oh, sorry, I recorded the wrong one. Let's record this one. There we go. So now we've got our loop in here, and this sounds really great. I mean, this is just perfectly fine. I can bring this up to basically make sure that the volume is nice and loud. Turn this down a little bit. And now when I open this up, first you can see that it is now warped. I don't want to warp this, so I'm going to turn off the warping mode. I'm going to drag this inwards a little bit because you can see we basically ended up with a tiny bit of delay. That is because the buffer setting is set to, what is it, 10 milliseconds. So that is basically just your 10 milliseconds delay that you've got there. And you can take that out. And that just makes sure that it ends exactly on the same spot. Now, what we can do is I can take that filter automation that I've got right here and drop it on this particular track. You see, and now we basically just get that same filter automation. Then I'm going to resample this again, like that. So I now hope that it's a little bit more precise with the automation, because it looks about right. Let's bring up the automation pattern. Where is there a nice sharp? Yeah, this looks really good. Right now, basically, the automation just matches perfectly. It's exactly the same. And that's pretty good. We now, by minimizing the amount of effects that are used in the FX chain, we basically make sure that there is such a small delay that the automation falls exactly on the perfect spot. If I would take this entire rack, you know, with its 3 layers, and record this one, we have 2 instances of massive, some Max for Live devices. We've got Camel Fat, which also introduces some latency. So all these different effects stacked up all create a little bit of latency, and because the automation is not compensated with that same amount of delay, we basically don't really get an accurate response on that automation. What happens is the signal is playing a little bit later in time, but the automation just starts at the exact same spot as what it did before. So you're gonna hear a tiny little click or pop at the end of, for instance, this sound, because the automation is right here, but the note that is right here at this moment, because of the latency, plays from about there. So you can see that right now, this automation is still on that bottom note. And because that happens, or because that is how it works, you then get that little pop because that note isn't really finished yet. And it tries to bring that up, but the note isn't finished. So you get a weird kind of sound. And because it's such a small amount, you then get the new note right after it. And that sounds really fucked up. So do it this way and you get a lot less of that latency. Really helps, you know, to make sure that when you're gonna chop things up, everything is basically already lined up to the grid. It's perfectly lined up. You know, there's a very slight delay, but that really doesn't matter, you know. As long as the automation is spot on, that means you're doing it right, and from then you can basically start chopping this up. In the upcoming videos, I'm going to chop up all these bass sounds and rearrange them and create an interesting sounding drop. And that is one of the most difficult parts of creating a track. I like to write a drop first because, well, yeah, it differs for every single track. Sometimes I start with an intro, you know, it's really what inspires me, but most of the time I really like to start with the drop because that is the loudest element in the track. That is the element that really gives it that driving feeling and that really makes people move, you know, and that's why that element should always really be spot on and perfect. So it's a really good thing when you're creating drops to be really criticizing yourself, be really, well, you know, don't say to yourself, ah, this sounds good, and then when you hear it in about 2 years from now, you're gonna think, why did I even think this was good, you know? Some things have a lot of potential, but when you are not putting enough amount of time in them, it's not gonna become any good. So, yeah, that was it for this week. If you got any questions about this video or any of my other videos, you can leave a comment below. But with the new YouTube comment system, I'm not completely sure that I'm seeing all the comments. So if I don't respond to your comment, you can tweet them to @ARTFX STUDIOS. Click the bottom left to go to my Twitter. Click the bottom right to go to my website. On that website you can find lots of great information about me, about both the videos, and you can find a new VIP section where you can get, well, really good high quality Ableton racks that you can use in your music. Those racks are really interesting. I've got them right here. One of them that I really like is the Distortify. Now the Distortify is meant to turn your sound to shit, or well, it's meant to destroy your sound. So right now I've got this. Sounds pretty good, but I can add some amp. And you can see how that really Destroys the sound. It's really great. You know, I made this rack, and it's really great because you can actually blend different kinds of distortion, and you've got a filter in the end of the chain and a volume control. And that's everything you need, you know. You can totally destroy things and automate these values, you know, automate that crush. Which is really great. You can get interesting sounds with that, you know, get something. You know, you can get really interesting effects. So I've got that one and a lot of other ones as well on the ARTFX website. And you can download those if you are a VIP member. If you like this video and want to see more of these videos, please subscribe to this channel. It's became a little bit of a long video this time again, but you know, that's becoming my trademark, I guess. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and have something and can do something with the information I gave you. And I want to say to you, happy producing, and if you want, become a member of my website, share your music with me, and I might give you some feedback. Peace.